Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here in my snug little converted garage. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. Good to have you guys here. I'm joined, coming into us from the Robservatory, writer, director, producer of Agent Cody Banks, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Well, I'm doing fine, John. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Bringing back my past.
Also joining us, of course, is our technical director, Mr. Jonathan Voico.
Hey, everybody. Come on, John. We all know you're in like a top-tier office at the top of the Netflix building right now. You're not in a garage.
Yes, that's exactly how this is happening right now. And also, we have a special guest joining us today. No, for those of you who followed me for a long period of time, you know that I primarily on YouTube watch tech and sports stuff on YouTube. A lot of tech. I follow a lot of tech. A lot of good Canadian kids like Unbox Therapy, Linus, guys like that. But, you know, I've also got like one of my favorite tech YouTubers. And a couple of years ago, back when I was still doing press stuff, I went to a premiere and Ann and I are sitting down for this premiere. And I realized not sitting far from me was one of my absolute favorite tech YouTubers, Brian Tong, who turns out he's a big movie fan. And we've been talking a bunch over the last couple of years that we got to do something together sometime. And Brian Tong is here.
Oh, man, John, it is an honor, my friend. It's long overdue, but thank you so much for having me. So hyped to be here. And that was very flattering to hear. So, I mean, you know, I've been watching you for a while. People even see me sneak some clips of your show on my reviews because I got to give a shout out to you as well.
Actually, before you even told me about it, Ann actually sent me a text message. She goes, "Hey, did you see Brian's latest video?" I'm not yet. And she sends me the screenshot where you got the John Campea Show playing in the background. I'm like, sweet.
Oh yeah.
That's how it's
right,
done.
Baby. Yep.
But most importantly, of course, guys, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. And here's how the show's going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a whole bunch of predetermined topics that we got lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show is when I'm going to turn it over to you, where I'm going to take your live comments and questions. The super chats are currently open, but they are already filling up. So I'm going to turn off the super chats at some point in the next 20 minutes or so. But in the second part of the show, that's when we're going to go over and take those questions you guys have been firing in. All right. We got a lot of stuff to cover here today, so let's not waste any time and get right to it, shall we? And we're going to start off with this. You know, Daredevil, when it was on Netflix, was very popular. I mean, I don't think as many people watched it as we think watched it, which is also kind of evidenced by the ratings of Daredevil now on Disney Plus, which is unfortunate because I think the show is really good. But we already got Jessica Jones back. We already know that we've got probably the rest of the Defenders coming back, but there'd been some talk for a while about whether or not they'd bring back Elektra. And I honestly never thought they would because, you know, the actress Elodie Young, she's actually pretty busy. I thought, you know, you're already bringing so much back for Daredevil. I didn't think they'd do it. Well, hold your horses, because according to this story, which I'm sure I'm going to have to bring up here on screen, that's the wrong one, but I will bring it up on screen here in just 1 second. According to the reports, here we go. Daredevil Born Again is in fact bringing back Elektra. And we know that for a fact because not only are they telling us about it, but they've got pictures. They've got photos of her actually on set back in the Elektra outfit. And I'll tell you what, she looks great. I think she looks wonderful in the role. I loved her in the show before. I think this is all types of great. Now, some people didn't love the character of Elektra in the Daredevil series. I never understood why. I thought she was I mean, don't get me wrong. My girl, Jennifer Garner, is always going to be my Elektra. That even if her movie was terrible. That being said, I thought Elodie Young's Elektra in Daredevil on Netflix was fantastic. I thought she was great. And, you know, it was one of the better, nay. I will say it was the best love story that Matt has had. I mean, the one he's got with Karen is fine, but Karen was also with Foggy, and Karen also has kind of a sort of a love interest thing going on with Frank. And I never felt that one so much. Then, of course, he had, you know, the psychiatrist, and, you know, we saw how that turned out. but I actually think his romance with Elektra is the best one they've done on screen so far. So, we all know how Daredevil season 2 left off. So there's some people already theorizing, guys, that Elektra is going to kind of take up the Daredevil mantle for Matt while he's in prison, and they work to get him out. There's nothing to back that up with, but it's an interesting theory nonetheless. So I'm really happy to see her back. Anyway, Rob, you saw this story. You saw this news. Are you surprised that she's coming back to play Elektra again? Good idea, bad idea? And then what do you think her role in this is going to be?
Well, first of all, as someone once said, Elektra lives again. I think that, I mean, she's integral to the Daredevil mythos. Obviously, when you have Bullseye, you can't not think about Elektra. And I was so enamored. One of the things that got me reading comics in the early 80s was I had purchased a compilation of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil that introduced Elektra. And I loved the character. And, of course, Bill Sienkiewicz, Elektra Assassin, is one of the great graphic novels of the 80s. And so to see her come back, I think is, as Thanos said, inevitable. So I love seeing her come back, because look, who does not love Elektra? And, if you're going to bring back the rest of the Defenders, you got to bring Elektra back too. Plus, John, ninja.
Yes, we all know everything makes ninjas better. Brian, I
ninjas make everything better.
Did you ever watch the original Netflix series of that? What did you think about it? And are you surprised she's coming back? What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, I think we all loved the original Netflix series because it really had a grit and grime to it. And I do feel like maybe season 1 of Born Again lost a little bit of that grit, but I feel like we're kind of coming back to it now in season 2. It does feel like season 3 is almost the street level Avengers, get everyone, throw all the pieces on the board, right? Bullseye, Defenders. We'll see how Iron Fist is depicted in this way. You got to get Elektra back in the mix. I mean, when I saw the first Netflix series, I loved her character. Maybe I just missed all the negative, hate towards her character. I didn't have a problem with her at all. I mean, she might have been one of the more dynamic opposing characters, also love interest with Matt Murdock. So I'm happy to see this. I think it's going to add a little element of like the X, who's the toxic X, who comes in and shakes things up. You always got to have that, like, little extra flavor. I think that, not that Karen and Matt's romance right now is a little blah or boring, but it's a little predictable. I think Elektra can mix it up.
Oh, I'll call it blah and boring. And by the way, that's not a knock on the girl who plays Karen. No. Which I'm freezing on her name right now, but she's great. And I love the character and I love her in the role. By the way, she's like doing the lead voice in that upcoming God of War thing they have coming up. And she's an avid Dungeons and Dragons player. She's one of the coolest girls on the planet. Love her. It's just, but I have never bought into the romantic relationship between Matt and Karen. So I hope this messes things up a little bit. I hope they mix it up a little. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Elodie Yung is coming back to play Elektra again. How do you think they're going to use her? Are you glad she's coming back? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, summer is fully underway. And we've got some big movies coming out for the rest of the year, but not just in the entire rest of the year, just for the remainder of the summer. We've got some massive, massive films coming out. Now, we've been talking about for a while that it looked like 2026 was really going to be that recovery year that we've been waiting for post-pandemic. And so far, we're there. Like the first couple of quarters of the year have seen us on pace or ahead of pace of the pre-pandemic year of 2019, which is great. But how many billion-dollar films? How many films will get so many people going out to the movies this year that they actually join that coveted billion-dollar club? Now, I've got 5 films for us to discuss here, guys. So the ones that I think have realistic chances, at least a chance of being a billion-dollar film. I've never thought Supergirl had a whiff of being a billion-dollar film, so that's not on the list. So I want to go through the 5 films that we're going to talk about are Spider-Man Brand New Day. We're going to talk about the Odyssey, Moana, Minions and Monsters, and Toy Story 5. Toy Story 5's already opened, but it's just opened. So we're going to talk about these 5, and we're each going to list them in the order of least likely to join that $1 billion club to most likely to joining the $1 billion club. So I'll get things started here. Starting with me, out of those 5 films, I think the one that has a chance to join the $1 billion club, but has the least likely chance of joining it, is not that one. It's this one, Moana. Listen, I absolutely think doing this Moana movie is a good idea. I do. I love the original Moana. I think when you do things in animation and live action, even if they're almost identical, they deliver completely different experiences to me. And I think it was a good idea. I mean, hell, the animated film was like the #1 streaming movie in the world for like 3 or 4 years straight, just recently. I mean, so the popularity of the character, Moana 2, which was nowhere near as good as Moana 1, but Moana 2 joined the $1 billion club. So, I mean, making a live action Moana, I think, was a good idea. So why do I have it down at the bottom of my list? I have it at the bottom of the list because I don't think the trailers have been all that great. I think it just kind of looks like an also and project. And there have been live action adaptations that I've seen the marketing for and thought, yes, this is definitely one to do. But for whatever reason, the marketing for this one has been kind of blasé. So I'm going to say, well, it still has a chance at $1 billion because it is a Moana film. I'm going to say it has the second least likely chance to join the $1 billion club. All right. My second least likely to join the $1 billion club, but definitely has a shot at it, I'm going to say is the Odyssey. Now, some of you might think I'm crazy for not having this higher on the list, but a couple of things to keep in mind. Christopher Nolan has never had a film join the $1 billion club that didn't have the word Batman in it. Well, wait a minute. Dark Knight didn't have the word Batman in it either. Shut the fuck up. You know what I'm talking about. So, he's never had $1 billion. That includes Oppenheimer, which almost got to the $1 billion mark, but it didn't quite. This is going to be an R-rated film, so there's only been 2 R-rated films in history that have joined the $1 billion club. That was the first Joker, and that was Deadpool and Wolverine. So only 2 have ever done it. Now look, Odyssey is going to be a massive hit. A massive, massive hit, no doubt. And it very well could make the $1 billion club. I'm not going to bet against it. I'm just saying out of this list of 5, I think 3 other films have the better chance. All right. So least likely, I'm going to say Moana. 4th is going to be Odyssey. For me, the next one down is going to be, or at least in 3rd spot here, I'm going to say is Minions and Monsters, which once again, I keep bringing up the wrong thing. Minions and Monsters. Look, these things just crank out money. They just crank out money. And especially this year, the last couple of years, whether it's been Inside Out 2 or Zootopia 2, and right now Toy Story, which we'll talk about in a second, the family films, especially the well-recognized family films, are just bringing people out in droves. And I don't see any reason now. Do I think Minions and Monsters is going to be as big as Zootopia 2? No. Do I think it's going to be as big as Toy Story 5? No. But do I think it has a very legit shot of being a $1 billion film? I absolutely do. So I'm going to say Minions and Monsters is the 3rd most likely on this list to get to the $1 billion club. All right. That brings us to the 2nd most likely. And that is one that is already in theaters, and that's Toy Story 5. And again, we're going to talk about Toy Story more in just a little bit here. But Toy Story 5, of course, just had the biggest opening of its franchise history. It had the biggest opening of any film this year. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but it also just had the biggest Monday box office of any film of the year. So it's going to keep rolling. I think it's almost a certainty that Toy Story 5 will cross that $1 billion mark. And so I'm putting it in the 2nd most likely. And the most likely one to join the $1 billion club is actually one that people are debating about whether or not it's going to be a $2 billion thing or not. And that's Spider-Man Brand New Day. I don't think there's any doubt. Now, look, all 5 of these films could potentially join the $1 billion club. I'm just saying, if you had to bet real logistical money on one of them absolutely joining it, it's going to be Spider-Man Brand New Day. Again, for a lot of people, the argument isn't whether or not it becomes a $1 billion film. A lot of people argue about whether or not it's going to be a $2 billion film. I don't think it'll hit 2 billion, but I do think 1 billion is an automatic at this point. So from least likely to most likely, Moana, Odyssey, Minions, Toy Story 5, Spider-Man Brand New Day. Rob, you had to look at these 5 films. You tell us, what is the order of likelihood of any or all these films joining the $1 billion club?
Well, I think you pretty much nailed it. I mean, I would put, all right, you said Minions was 3rd, right? So it's from Descending. I can't argue with what you've stated. I think Moana, though, might have a better chance of hitting $1 billion. Maybe put that up one more.
So over Odyssey?
Odyssey.
Over Odyssey. Yeah. I think Odyssey, in my mind, is the big wild card in this because just because the genre, call it sword and sandal, call it what you will. I mean, Christopher Nolan has become his own genre. So never bet against C-Note, right? But I think that a lot of his movies, as good as they are, like I love Dunkirk, but it only made $500 million. But for Warner Brothers, that was huge because they never thought a story about a British story from World War II would make that much money. But I think the Odyssey is a bit of a risk, to be honest. And the spectacle of it could be great, but I would put Moana. I would bet on Moana first before I would bet on the Odyssey, as crazy as that might seem. And I could be proven wrong. But Moana, being that it's one of the most beloved animated films, and the second one did well, and this, you've got Dwayne Johnson coming back. I think Moana is kind of a lock for $1 billion. But then
really,
but then the others, if it's good, it's good. But I think with Minions, we saw that. I was not really interested. The Minions movies are fine, not my thing, but that CinemaCon trailer we saw, because of the subject matter and old Hollywood, I'm like, oh, I'm in. It looked great. So I'm into Minions. And then of course, Toy Story is going to make $1 billion. And of course, Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to make $1 billion. So,
all right, Brian, you got the list of 5 films for you. In order of least likely to most likely, which ones get into the $1 billion club?
Well, I do watch your show regularly, and I feel like justified because my list matched John's exactly. Like I was just nodding the entire time. I do think, though, Rob makes a great point about Moana, even purely just because of the Disney machine. But I put Moana as the least likely because I think there's a little bit of rock fatigue, actually. I think that also, Moana, like you said, great, amazing first movie. Second movie did even better, but a lot of people that I talk about are like, why are we doing a live action of this one specifically? And so I don't know if it's too soon after Moana 2 came out to do that. And I do feel there's a little bit of rock fatigue in the movie space. The audiences can prove me wrong. They probably will. But I did like what Rob was saying. It may have a chance to hit 1 billion. But at least from my perspective, when I talk to people, like I don't know any of my friends that are saying, I've got to take my family to go see Moana. I know Minions, Toy Story, Brand New Day are going to be a higher priority than Moana this summer. I do like Odyssey at number 4 because just the genre, the style of movie, it's rated R. That's why I put it at 4. But I mean, the Brand New Day at number 1, I'm not saying Toy Story 5 should and could top it, but it really comes down to we haven't seen really Marvel catch their mojo or their juju again. And I think a lot of people are curious if Brand New Day can kind of lead to that. And so the Brand New Day is going to be a really interesting indicator of how people are going to really digest what's coming when we talk about Doomsday and Secret Wars. I think it's a really important film for Marvel. I don't know if it'll hit 2 billion like other ones have, but I think Brand New Day, this might be the most important Marvel movie in a long time. And I know we say that every time, but I really think when it's Spider-Man, when it's that flagship character that also does well internationally, there's a lot riding on it for them.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's going to be, and you're right. I've heard every other film on this list. I've heard people saying, can't wait to see Toy Story 5. Can't wait to see Odyssey. Can't wait to see Spider-Man. Can't wait to see Minions. I haven't heard anybody say, man, I can't wait to watch Moana. I'll be there opening day. But I haven't heard a lot of people say it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? These are the films that I think are most likely to hit the $1 billion mark. How would you order them in terms of least likely to get there to most likely to get there? And do you think there are any dark horses that maybe you think I left off the list? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, of course, the biggest piece of news in, well, everything involving the world of movies and entertainment recently, at least for the last 6 months, has been the concept of Paramount buying Warner Brothers. And one of the big questions that also raises for people who are fans of genre stuff is, what would that mean specifically for DC, this brand new DCU that got off to a triumphant start with Superman, making, by the way, just to remind everybody, despite how bad the DCEU drove the reputation of DC into the ground, Superman came out and made more money than the previous 7 DCEU movies, made well over $600 million, got over an 80% critic score, and got into the 90% of the audience score. It was a triumphant return. But what would happen if Paramount does indeed get Warner Brothers? And would they get rid of James Gunn? Would James Gunn say, I'm out of here anyway? I don't know. Well, a really interesting story just came out in Variety that, not talked about that one. That's not the one I'm talking about, which is, where's my story here? I lost my story. There's my story. Sorry, I had the wrong one up there. So a really interesting story just came out about David Ellison. According to this report in The Hollywood Reporter, actually went to the set of Man of Tomorrow and met with Peter Safran and James Gunn. And one of the secondary producers of the film said, David Ellison is really into what we're doing. But more importantly than that, David Ellison actually said he was a big fan. This is what they wrote in The Hollywood Reporter. They said this: after Netflix declined to raise its bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, and Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery agreed to move forward to the tune of $111 billion mega deal, questions arose about Gunn and Safran's future at the helm of DC Studios. According to Winther, Ellison is currently interested in the duo's work and slate, which, when announced in 2023, included 10 titles. He's pretty open to what we're doing. We do have a slate, and a lot of it, obviously. Clayface is already coming out. We already have the Lanterns TV show. On those things, the train's left the station, so we're good. But he's a big fan. He's been great with us. He's giving us kind of what we want so far. Everything's good. Now, you guys know that it already got leaked out a while ago that one of David Ellison's top priorities was keeping James Gunn and Peter Safran. I mean, yes, there were some people trying to spread rumors that he would want to get rid of James Gunn and Peter Safran. The reality was one of his top priorities was keeping James Gunn and Peter Safran. So he's gone over to go meet with them personally, saying he's a big fan, all that kind of stuff. And that's good. And listen, I want to give credit where credit is due. Okay? I think it is very admirable that David, because you guys know I don't want this merger to go through. I think it will go through, and I'm going to cheer for it once it does and hope it succeeds. But before that happens, I don't want it to go through. I want Warner Brothers to stay independent. That being said, I think David Ellison has done a number of things. You know, I crap on him when he does some stupid stuff, well deserved, but I also want to give credit when he does the right things. You know, they're trying to get UK approval. He personally got on a plane. He went over to Europe. He met with all the leaders, tried to explain their position and what they're doing. I like the fact that he got on a plane, went personally to meet face-to-face with James Gunn and Peter Safran and make his case about why everything's going to be great once Paramount buys it. Listen, it doesn't mean I changed my mind, but I think that's the right thing to do, and I want to give kudos where kudos are deserved. That being said, I just don't see reality. I just see no reality right now where James Gunn is going to still be at DC if this thing goes through. Now, I did an entire video about it once before, and I don't think any of the circumstances has changed. I think there's some practical business reasons why I think James Gunn still leaves. And I think there are some philosophical reasons why I think James Gunn leaves. On the professional level, you know, he just trusted the structure at Warner Brothers much more. The reality is, and even the biggest proponents of, you know, David Ellison taking over Warner Brothers with Paramount will say it's going to be chaotic for a while. Like even the most staunch supporters of it are saying it will be chaotic for a while. And I don't think chaos is something James Gunn wants. You know, he had a very secure, a very stable setup at Warner Brothers. He only answered to one person at Warner Brothers, and that was to, you know, the Axe's Zaslav. He only answered to David Zaslav. That was the only person he had to report to. He had a lot of creative freedom, all the creative freedom in the world to do whatever he wanted to do. But most importantly, they weren't a company that was saddled with $80 billion of debt. And one of the things that we know is that if this merger goes through, and I believe it will, the combined Paramount Warner Brothers company is going to have close to $80 billion of debt. And just to remind everybody, Paramount's credit rating has just been dropped to junk bond status by the banking industry. That means they don't get, you guys know this, when you guys take out a loan, it ain't free. There's interest, always interest. And when your company gets dropped to junk bond status, you don't get the sweet family interest rate anymore. And even if Paramount is only going to be facing a 6% interest rate, which I think it'll be higher, but even if it's only 6%, they're going to be owing close to $5 billion a year in interest. To put that into perspective, Paramount's entire film catalog will not make that much money in the year, which means by the end of the year, they're going to owe even more money, and then more money and more money. And from a business perspective, I just don't see why a James Gunn would want to be in that kind of an unstable environment where clearly they're going to have to slash and cut and do all these types of things to try to keep the debt under control. It's going to be kind of crazy. Then, of course, there's the philosophical stuff. Jamon Lee, I declare bankruptcy in your best Michael Scott voice. Then, of course, comes the philosophical point, right? And, you know, we try to keep politics and movies separate here, but sometimes they're unavoidably cross over a bit here. So one cannot do this without pointing out Donald Trump really hates James Gunn. James Gunn really hates Trumple Foreskin. And the Ellisons are very big supporters of said Trumple Foreskin. And so that just creates a philosophical problem, I think, for James Gunn that I don't think he'll want to stick around in that environment. So there's a professional thing about lack of stability, debt problems, probably facing a lot of cuts. There's the philosophical part about that he just doesn't align with, he and the Ellisons just don't align. I think that's a fair, simple way to put it. He and the Ellisons don't align when it comes to worldview and world philosophy. So there's that. Now, either one of those two things maybe, possibly could maybe be overcome. But the other big thing to keep in mind about the situation is this. James Gunn's contract runs out in 2027. After the release of Man of Tomorrow. And I think, guys, and you might think I'm crazy, I think James Gunn, I think he finishes out his contract. I think he gets Man of Tomorrow complete, finished, out in theaters. And then I think he does and walks out the door. Wish
How's
you
he gonna pay
well.
his bills?
how on earth is James Gunn going to eat? Because that's the other thing. You guys remember that when, Disney fired James Gunn all those years ago, every single studio lined up at James Gunn's door with a blank check and said, you can do whatever you want to do. He chose Warner Brothers. There he went. Guys, there's no doubt the exact same thing's going to happen again. He's going to leave, and every studio is going to make him offers to do whatever it is he wants to do. That's going to happen. And so I think he finishes out and goes. Now, let me be clear. James Gunn never told me he's leaving. Peter Safran never told me they're leaving. I am just a fan like anybody else, looking at the tea leaves and making my own guesses, just like anybody else. But I'm going to guess strong that James Gunn is going to go when this is all said and done and Paramount does take over. But again, kudos to David Ellison for getting on the plane, flying out there, making his case. I don't know, maybe it'll make a difference. Brian, this is obviously the biggest news story in all of movies right now. But do you think when the smoke settles, do you think James Gunn decides to say, you know what? Let's give it a shot for a year or two. Let's give it a shot. Or do you think he says, you know what? You, David Ellison, and I'm going to cheer for you, but we don't align philosophically. I'm going to go. I don't know. What do you think James Gunn ultimately does here?
Well, I think just seeing how James Gunn has operated, or from what we know, whether it's based on articles or even just how he interacts on social media and whatnot, I think if he feels creatively fulfilled and the movies do well, that's the only thing that's going to give us this idea that he might stick around. Because we know if he leaves and they have to blow up this new version of the DC universe, do we want to see another reset again? No one wants to see that, right? So, and he's the core at it. I think if Supergirl does well, enough, right? It may not get the biggest critical acclaim, but there's a lot of movies like that the fans of the genre have loved. I think that's as well. I'm really curious to see, although Clayface not a big mainstream name, how will that resonate with movie critics and audiences? But we're talking about, right, the next Superman movie. That's really his next crown jewel. If that does well enough, right? Maybe that's enough to have him come back, because at the same time, I mean, isn't the biggest thing in Hollywood that talks is money? So if that does well and Warner Brothers says, we're going to write you another blank check and we've got some great momentum, why would he leave at the same token?
Rob, what do you think about this? What happens after? Okay, so we fast forward a little over a year. Man of Tomorrow comes out. Does James Gunn stay? Does James Gunn leave? What do you think's going to happen, and what do you think's going to be the types of factors that determine what he decides to do?
Well, it's interesting because I do think that the James Gunn DC universe, we have sort of Peacemaker and we've got Superman, and that's it. We got Lanterns coming. We have Supergirl about to drop, and then we have Clayface and Man of Tomorrow. That's all. That's it. I don't see. I mean, that's like Supergirl. If Supergirl makes $500 million, $500 million, I think people will say it was a success. But it's not an extraordinary success. And if Lanterns is really good and people are like, wow, this is really spectacular, and then Clayface turns out to be a breakaway R-rated body horror hit on it's like a $40 million budget or
very
something.
Inexpensive film.
Yeah. And if it makes $150 million, $200 million, that'll be seen as a pretty big win. But it's almost as if the DC universe is not quite up in the air. It's almost like if Man of Tomorrow comes in and nails that landing and becomes $1 billion movie, which I think it could, then the DC universe, as James Gunn has envisioned it, I think is at least safe. But I think there are two things there. That also allows him to walk away and pretty successful experiment. I hope somebody picks up the reins and takes it forward. I think he could leave with a smile on his face and feel like it was a job well done. I just don't want to work under the studio with this kind of oversight or whatever reason, and nobody would blame him for that. But if he leaves and the DCEU is in a shambles by the time Man of Tomorrow comes out, that'll be a different thing. But I lean into your. I think he's going to leave. I think he's going to leave either way, because either way that the DCEU won't have worked and he needs an exit strategy, he'll probably go to Marvel or somewhere else, or anybody else will be happy to pick him up, or he'll go do something else. I could see him leaving the studio system, at least for a while, and going back to his indie roots.
He does love that. He loves that.
If he goes
spot
and makes a new Slither and a new Super, it's not like Kevin Feige won't bring him back. He's only ever made them money.
Yeah.
Is he fatigued by the superhero genre himself? I mean, how long has he been doing it as well?
I mean, I doubt it, because like this guy, he is one. I remember John Schnepp used to talk about him, like in the Hollywood circles, he's one of the most read comic book guys his whole life. Like he's been a hardcore comic nut his whole life, James Gunn. So I doubt he's fatigued with it, but I mean, one never knows. I mean, there could be a lot of different factors that go into it, but I could also see a reality absolutely where he goes back to Marvel. I mean, him and Kevin Feige, remember, James Gunn said when he took the DC job, he said the very first phone call he made was to Kevin Feige. Those two are very, very tight, and I could see that happening too. But anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think happens here? David Ellison, listen, full credit to him. He got on a plane. He flew across the country. He went to go meet with James Gunn on the set of his movie. He says he's a big fan, wants to keep him around, but I just don't see James Gunn staying. Maybe you guys can see it where he's staying. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we were already kind of just mentioning Toy Story 5 a second ago, and the unbelievable opening weekend it had. Not only was it by far the biggest opening for any movie this year so far with $160 million domestic opening, but it was also by far the biggest opening weekend in the Toy Story franchise. 5th film, 3 decades in, and it's still just killing it. Well, lest you think that was just it just had a big opening weekend. Well, apparently it's more than that, because it just had its first Monday. And according to the story and Deadline, Toy Story 5 soars to the best Monday of any film this year, making $17.3 million. It goes on to say this: Disney Pixar's Toy Story 5 had a great Monday with $17.3 million at the domestic box office. So great that it's the best Monday we've seen so far at the 2026 box office, ahead of Super Mario Galaxy's first Monday, April 6th, which did 16.8. And of course, you guys remember that movie went on to cross the $1 billion mark. So good for it, and kudos to it. So it wasn't just people wanted to rush out and see it immediately. Even on the Monday, this thing looks like it's going to have legs. Now, I don't know that this movie's going to have Pixar, or not Pixar, but Zootopia 2 legs. Remember, Zootopia 2 opened to $100 million. Toy Story made much more. But Zootopia 2 had the kind of legs that it became the highest grossing animated film of all time at $1.8 billion with a $100 million opening. I don't know if Toy Story is going to have those kinds of legs, but it certainly bodes well that its opening weekend was that big, that its Monday was this good. So, Rob, let me ask you this. What is it about this Toy Story franchise? Like, when some other franchises, once they get to a certain number in their scale, they're like, oh, maybe people get tired of it, or it doesn't feel fresh anymore, or whatever. What is it about Toy Story, and maybe even Toy Story 5 specifically, that has the audiences running out to see it opening weekend, still coming out to see it on its first Monday, to the biggest Monday of the year? What keeps them coming back, and how big do you think this thing can ultimately be?
Well, what's interesting to me is that what keeps the Toy Story franchise vibrant, John, is the fact that the talent that they keep on these movies, once again, you bring back Andrew Stanton, one of the great Pixar directors, to come back and direct a 5th movie in a franchise. You seldom get the director of the first movie of the franchise that made it into a franchise in the first place to come back and do the 5th version or the 5th iteration of that franchise. And Pixar doesn't skimp. You get the A-team on these movies all the time. So you're getting the greatest talents at Pixar's disposal to come back and make these films. They look at them all as not sequels. They're all standalone films, even though they have numbers behind them, that have to live and die and justify their existence on their own. And this is their preeminent, premier, top of the line, Tiffany standard, gold standard, call it what you want, franchise. And that's why they're all so good. And that level of quality, that looking at, a lot of people look at sequels kind of throwaway. I mean, that's changed now in recent days because a lot of sequels outgross the original. But that wasn't always the case. In this case, I don't think the Toy Story franchise, they're not considered sequels. They're just considered another Toy Story movie. And if you're going to do a Toy Story movie, yes, we have to call them 5 so the audience knows. We'll put a number there. But internally, these are their own things, and these have to stand as the very best Pixar can do. And they always kind of have. Now, you might not like Toy Story as much as Toy Story 4 as much as Toy Story 3, but even Toy Story 4 was an excellent, beautifully made, handsomely mounted film that could stand on its own. If there were no other Toy Story movies and you just had Toy Story 4, it would still be considered a great animated film. And I think that it's that attitude and it's that quality and it's that commitment to excellence that Pixar brings that keeps audiences coming back. And the proof is in the pudding. What other franchises rolling along this healthily at the 5th iteration of it?
And it's going into its fourth decade, by the way.
Yeah.
Brian, you see the numbers it's pulling in are just off the charts. They're remarkable. They're on record-setting paces. What do you think it is about Toy Story that, like, being this old, being around this long, I'm sure there are people watching this show right now who weren't even born when the first one came out, and has people coming back so frequently and so often?
Well, Rob touched on it a lot, and it always comes down to storytelling, right? Like, Toy Story has evolved with the audience. It's grown. Look, this one is about like this idea of the threat of tech and how many families who grew up watching Toy Story when there was no such thing as an iPad that ever existed are now battling the iPad with their kids. And you talk about 4 decades, right? Rob made me laugh inside because he's like, what other franchise has lasted this? Internally, I'm laughing and giggling, saying Fast and the Furious, but Fast and the Furious is not like Toy Story at all.
No,
right?
but I would say the 5th Fast and the Furious movie is the masterpiece of that franchise.
Ooh, very good, very good. So maybe five's a lucky number right here, right? We got 5 on it, but man, they have been patient with Toy Story. I remember even Toy Story 1 hit and Toy Story 2 came out. I feel like those came out within 3 or 4 years together, and then it felt like there was a gap. Toy Story 3 showed up, and then that was probably, in my opinion, one of the most emotional ones. Like, I remember crying in that last scene. I was like, holy crap. I'm still pretty young at that time. And so now you have Toy Story 5, which is completely taken that person who emotionally invested in those characters after those 10 years, 30 years later. My God. And the storytelling is still incredible. So then they've delivered. When you can deliver and, like you say, assemble the A team, it's hard to deny it, even when there's a huge gap in time.
Guys, question is for you. You've seen the numbers now. The numbers are just absolutely unreal. Even after that huge opening influx of money on its opening weekend, it's still carrying on with over $17 million made on money, which makes it the biggest of any film this year. Box office results for a Monday at all. Why is it that Toy Story is able to generate this kind of interest and get this many people keep running out to go see it, even more than 3 decades later? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.
Someone said chapter 5 in the Star Wars saga was Empire Strikes Back, so it must be a lucky number 5.
I like that. I like that. I like that.
That is not how we count the Star Wars movies. Just so everybody knows, that is not how we count.
Did Final Destination get to 5? Did Final Destination get to 5 yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Was the 5th one the most recent one?
Was that the most recent one? Because, man, the most recent one was so good. Scream 5? No. What is?
I guess it's not an absolute.
No. There's exceptions to every rule. There's exceptions to every rule. All right, guys.
Definitely not
that
Indiana
down.
Jones 5.
Let's move on to this, shall we? Well, just recently, Big Papa Iger, Bob Iger, has, of course, again, stepped down as CEO of Disney after serving twice and bringing Disney to being the most powerful entertainment company in the world. Now, because he's no longer there, he's felt, let's say, a little loose-lipped and being open to talk about some things that he has not ever talked about before when it comes to stuff they did at Disney and things like that, including a couple things that this is from an article in Variety where it says Bob Iger talked about that they took a shot at buying the James Bond franchise. They almost bought Twitter, and they were in talks to merge with Apple. They were in talks to merge with Apple. All three of these things to me are fascinating, like absolutely fascinating. Now, should be pointed out that the James Gunn or the James Bond part of this was back when they, Bob Iger explains, was back when they were acquiring Star Wars. They just got Pixar a while before that. He said, I was in the frame of mind of let's just go get everything we want. And apparently they did take a shot at James Bond, which now, of course, belongs to Amazon. And they did not get it. And you know what? I think Disney's had an incredible track record of success. I'm kind of glad they didn't get James Bond. I can't see James Bond as under the Disney umbrella. But then again, I could never really see Deadpool under the Disney umbrella either, and that sort of worked out. So the James Bond thing was there. The Twitter thing was there. And they weren't going to use it as a social media network. They thought about buying it, Bob Iger says, and they were going to use it like a global distribution platform. So it would have totally fundamentally changed the nature of what Twitter was. Would still probably be better than what it is today, but still it was going to completely fundamentally change it. But Bob Iger said, we ultimately decided against it because we just thought it would be too distracting. We just thought it would just be a big distraction to everything else we were doing at Disney. So ultimately they moved away from that. But by far, to me, the most interesting and fascinating thing about it was something that I talked about for a while, although I never had any proof, which was Bob Iger says that they and reps at Apple actually did engage in conversations about the possibility of merging the companies. Now, you know, for a long time, big executives in both companies have sat on the board of the other's companies at different times. Like that's been the case for a long time. And I always thought that if anybody was going to buy Disney, I always thought it would be Apple for two reasons. One, Apple is one of the few companies on the planet that could actually open up the wallet and have the money to buy Disney. Not many people do. So that was one reason. But the second reason is just because they have such similar corporate cultures and the synergy would have been right. Because guys, what I've said for a long time is, look, Apple clearly wants to get into the entertainment vertical, right? And one of the things Apple has always done when they've wanted to get into a space is you have two options. You from the ground level up, try to build and develop your own thing, or go and buy somebody who's already in it and get us 5 steps ahead. And I always thought that if Apple really wanted to get into entertainment, the best thing they could possibly do is buy a company that's already firmly established in the vertical and integrated into what they're doing. Now, Rob, whenever we've had that discussion, you've always rightly pointed out, yeah, but does Apple want to be in the theme park business? And I think you've been absolutely right in pointing that out. I still thought there was a way to work that out. But fortunately today, we have what I consider to be one of the world's foremost Apple experts here on the panel, Brian. So, Brian, you saw this. We can talk about the James Bond stuff. We can talk about the Twitter stuff. But the part I'm fascinated most about is Apple. How would you see this making sense? And what do you think ultimately were the not sense-making things that ultimately made it go nowhere? How do you see this?
Well, we have to kind of look back at how Pixar was first formed. So people may not remember, but Steve Jobs actually purchased the computer division from Lucasfilm, okay? So he owned Pixar. I think it was for somewhere around like $10 million. Now, later on, Disney swoops in and acquires Pixar. Remember, Disney Animation was struggling. I can't remember this off top of my head. Maybe you guys know better, but I feel like the last few movies where Disney Animation was kind of coming down, there was Hunchback of Notre Dame. I think Hercules might have been coming out at that time, and it just felt a little more stale in general after you had those bangers like Aladdin, Little Mermaid, and Beauty and the Beast, and Pocahontas. So Disney Animation then ended up purchasing Pixar for $7+ billion. Okay. So Steve Jobs becomes like this huge, owns, I think, a majority, the largest stakeholder in Disney at the time. That's just a little history of how first of all, this relationship is very deeply intertwined. The other thing, though, that I see is I believe in the article, Bob Iger talked about how they had talked to Apple somewhere around in 2019. Now, Steve Jobs passed in 2011. And I think also the second version of Bob Iger is very different than the first version of Bob Iger that we saw lead Disney. He tended to be a little more about the creative, really into, the development. And then when he came back, it was more like bottom line balance sheets. Yes, he is still Bob Iger, but he was a different person in version 2. And I think version 2 of Bob Iger would have clashed with Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs is about, the creativity. He's about the art. He's about, the craftsmanship. And I think maybe those philosophies might have been different at the time. You talk about it. We had heard stories for, I feel like, at least 5 to 10 years of Apple and Disney doing some sort of a deal. We never heard anything like this until now, of course, way later. But, I think that Steve Jobs clearly saw how important content was. We saw how they disrupted content with iTunes and the music business. It then caused media companies to see what happened there, shrink back, kind of opening the kimono and letting Apple essentially control how they distribute their media. And now that's why we see all these different platforms, Disney Plus, HBO Max. But so they were a little wiser at the time, but the Disney Bob Iger first version and the Steve Jobs, and if you say, let's say around 2010, maybe that probably would have happened at that point in time if they actually talked, just because of the meetings of the minds and the places that these two men were at. The current Apple under Tim Cook, Tim Cook did a lot of great things, the most valuable tech company because of his efforts. His mind is more about supply chain, not about content. He had other people deal with content, and that relationship was not there with Bob Iger. So yeah, I say back in the day, it could have actually happened if they sat down, but 2019, it wasn't going to happen.
Rob, I mean, obviously you and I have talked about a potential Apple Disney merger, the whole thing. So I'm curious to know what you think that could have looked like, but I'm most interested in knowing what you think about the idea of Bob Iger saying, yeah, I took a shot at buying James Bond. Could you see James 007 in the Mouse House? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, not really. I mean, people forget that the James Bond franchise, up until the purchase by Amazon, was a family business. I mean, it was Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were the two producers who produced that franchise. Harry Saltzman left, but it was Albert Broccoli's family. Of course, his daughter Barbara Broccoli took over, and and Barbara Broccoli's stepbrother Michael Wilson kept the family legacy going. They produced 25 James Bond movies beginning in 1962. And so it really was a family business. And having a family business acquired by a bigger corporation, I mean, let's face it, after all that time, I think the Broccoli's were kind of done. After they killed James Bond, it's time to say bye. But I think that any major franchise like the Bond franchise would suffer the same fate as Star Wars, because they're not buying it because they have Bond stories to tell. They're buying it because the James Bond franchise has made money over the last 50 years, 60 years. And the problem with franchises is if you buy them, they're only as good as the people that are working within them. And if you don't have a plan and you don't know what you're going to do with that franchise, it's not exactly, I've never understood why acquire something if you don't. I would figure that you would have an entire plan laid out before the purchase goes through, because you're buying an asset that I would assume how you're going to exploit. But Disney didn't really have much of a plan with Star Wars, clearly. And I don't think they would have had much of a, they would have been like, we're going to make a young James Bond movie and we're going to do animated stuff and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. But yeah, who's going to do those things? Like, who do you have? Amazon basically acquired Bond and said, yep, Denis Villeneuve is going to make our first Bond movie. That's how it's done. But Apple didn't do that. So, Disney didn't do that about the Bond franchise. Sorry. So I don't think Bond would have fared well under the Mouse House. And what would they have done with
to be fair, it wasn't until sometime long after they did acquire James Bond that they then connected Denis Villeneuve to it. I mean, so that was something they did after the fact.
Sure, but I bet they had plans. It didn't happen that long. I mean, it wasn't, they announced that pretty quickly that he was going to take over that, and I think that they knew, I think Amazon kind of knew, because you take over a franchise like that, you've got to, they paid a lot of money for the Bond franchise. And I think they knew they probably had a list of 5 directors. They wanted to attach a director as quickly as they could. And they did. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think that Bond would have fared well. It would have been diluted. And what would like Disney they haven't even remastered the Planet of the Apes movies yet. They've owned Fox since 2019. Now
nobody cares that they haven't remastered Planet of the Apes yet. No, I've not had one person write into my show to say, John, when are they going to remaster Planet of the Apes? I've never got that email.
The point is, as an asset, if you're going to make more James Bond movies, Disney is Fox made Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And where are the original Apes films? I mean, you have a whole franchise there. There's 25 previous Bond movies. Would they have gone back and remastered them all and put them on their, because I would assume, isn't that what you're buying?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what Amazon does with that whole thing once they get further into it. But guys, right now, the question is for you. What do you think about this interview with Bob Iger? Dropping some bombs, actually, like they almost bought James Bond. They almost bought Twitter. We didn't even go much into that. And they were in talks with Apple about maybe merging in with Apple. Kind of crazy stuff. Like, for every one thing that happens, it seems like there's 10 things even crazier that didn't. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? I am going tonight to go see Supergirl. I've been looking forward to it. I mean, James Gunn and Peter Safran did a triumphant job re-kickstarting, re-energizing the DCU with Superman. Again, despite the fact that the DCEU was complete shambles and rubble and destroyed the reputation of DC and drove the entire audience away, they came out with a Superman movie with over 80% of critic rating, 90% audience rating, and made more than the previous 7 DCU movies did. And they put them back on their feet. But you also got to follow it up. And so James Gunn is not in the director's chair this time, but he went out and got Craig Gillespie, who is an absolute banger of a director. Lars and the Real Girl, I, Tonya, Dumb Money, which if you never saw Dumb Money, you need to watch Dumb Money because that movie is awesome. So I was pretty positive and pretty excited to hear that he was going to be directing Supergirl. And then we heard some early reactions. They were pretty tempered. They were mostly positive, but pretty tempered at the same time. I'm going to go see it tonight. But this morning, the full reviews for Supergirl came out. And while they not be as low as some of the previous DCEU offerings, it's significantly lower than what Superman was. The majority still seem to like it, but it's not overwhelmingly great. As a matter of fact, guys, as I kind of perused over all of them, all of the reviews, the general sense I got was nobody seemed to violently hate it, but nobody seemed to excitedly love it either. As of this recording, Supergirl is sitting at 80 or 58%, which again, so majority of critics like it. I think it could go as high as 63, 64, maybe as low as 55, 54, depending on how it goes. But let's go over and take a look at what some of the critics are saying about Supergirl. CNET liked it. They said Supergirl feels like a collection of ideas inspired by other things repackaged into a new thing here. Along with Gunn's signature move of having every stylized fight sequence fueled by some form of pop music, I find myself checking out more than once. Forbes liked it. They said Millie Alcock is the perfect Supergirl. By the way, that's a common theme. Even amongst some people who didn't like the film, they seem to think she was great in the role. Anyway, Millie Alcock is the perfect Supergirl. Her backstory, Craig Gillespie's direction, fight scenes, production design, and Alcock's acting are superb. But it's everything else that needs adjusting. Nerdist liked it. They said it's nowhere near a bad movie, but I wanted Supergirl to bowl me over, and it simply did not. Dan Merle didn't like it. He gave it a 5.5. He said, it's not a terrible film by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not that memorable or exciting either. Beyond the Trailer didn't like it, said a big disappointment after Gunn's excellent Superman last year. Supergirl inexplicably throws fantastic source material in the trash, the comic Woman of Tomorrow, in exchange for a watered-down version of Guardians of the Galaxy, the Marvel's Mad Max. Original Sin John Kirks liked it. He said Supergirl has her personal issues. Supergirl and Superman aren't just heroes with near limitless power here. They're also characters with depth, and their relationship adds layers to the legend. Zach Pope liked it. He said, I love Millie Alcock as Supergirl. Sadly, I only liked Supergirl the movie. Tons of highlights, but barely scratches the surface of Woman of Tomorrow, which we all love the source material. Guardians of the Galaxy Light meets Mad Max. Fun? Sure. Memorable? Kinda. Lobo? Awesome. I wanted more, though. Inverse liked it. They said Supergirl, with its perfect cast lead and its space western stylings, has all the ingredients to be amazing. But instead of soaring, it just sort of falls short. Big Gold Belt Media didn't like it. They said Supergirl succeeds as a character study of Kara's trauma, but its thin plot and script conveniences keep it from becoming something special. Muses of Media liked it. They said, bolstered by pitch-perfect performances from Alcock, Ridley, and Momoa, Supergirl soars at its highest when it folds the audience into all the emotional stakes at play, paired with thrilling action. Sebastian Kahn liked it. He said, Supergirl is fine, but considering how memorable Superman was last year, it made sense to expect something more from the latest film in this new DC universe. THN liked it. They said, despite not being as mighty as Superman, Supergirl remains a fun space journey, one capable of filling at least some of the void left with the conclusion of the Guardians of the Galaxy series. The San Francisco Chronicle liked it. They said Alcock's Supergirl has grown into the hero she's destined to become, and by the time the credits roll, it's her performance, not the increasingly oversized spectacle surrounding it, that leaves the strongest impressions. Fandom Wire liked it. They said Gillespie's follow-up to Gunn's Superman doesn't feel nearly as polished, but the visuals are fantastic, the universe is expansive, and Millie Alcock and Jason Momoa deliver standout performances. And we'll end off here with the Daily Telegraph that didn't like it. They said, like watching an endless orangey gray rehash of scenes from Mad Max and Star Wars. Who is faster than a speeding bullet and can leap tall buildings in a single bound? Supergirl's novel answer, who cares? All right. So we are left here with, again, pretty mixed. Slight majority of the critics seem to like it, but it doesn't seem to be eliciting a lot of strong emotions either way. Nobody seems to over the top hate it. Nobody seems to over the top love it. The people that didn't like it still say there's certain good things about it. The people that do like it point out a number of its problems. And guys, this raises two big questions for me. One, and now again, I say this as somebody who has not seen the film yet. I'm going to go see it tonight. But are we in a position where James Gunn has to direct every film? Is that the spot we're in? Now, again, I could not have been more thrilled with the announcement that Craig Gillespie was going to be directing it. Again, I love his work. Hell, even his Cruella movie on Disney Plus I thought was really good. Dumb Money was fantastic. I love Lars and the Real Girl. I love I, Tonya. That got a whole bunch of Oscar nominations. The guy's a really good director. He really is. But it seems to me like he stepped in and, you know, Rob, we were at CinemaCon together And you know, I was really looking forward to the Supergirl presentation. And after the Supergirl present, like I said on the live stream that night, I was like, I was not impressed with it. And even in that Supergirl presentation, it kind of felt like Craig Gillespie was trying to do a James Gunn imitation, and instead of just being Craig Gillespie. So the two things I worry about here, guys, is that, number one, are we in a position here where James Gunn, for a movie to work in the DC, that James Gunn has to direct it? That's not a winning formula. And number two, I know a lot of you guys disagree with me on this, and that's okay. It's often lonely being right. But I have said for a long time that my one concern about James Gunn running DC is that he actually run DC. And to run DC, he's got to be in the damn building, in his damn office, actually working with all the underlings to make things happen, instead of being off in another country on set making one specific movie. I've been saying this for a while. I think James Gunn needs to direct one movie every 5 years. That's fine. But if you're going to be the CEO of DC, be the CEO of DC and give it your full attention, because he's been working on Man of Tomorrow for about a year already, like long before the cameras started rolling, instead of being in his office. So now look, I haven't seen the movie yet. Maybe I'll come out of the movie going, damn, I loved it. Maybe I'll come out of it going, damn, I hated it. But it just seems like we're in this spot now. And again, none of the reviews are overly negative, but they're not overly positive either. So I'm like, either A, James Gunn's got to direct everything, or B, James Gunn has to actually start doing the job of being the CEO of the company. Anyway, Rob, you were there with me at CinemaCon when I got my first kind of bit of doubt about Supergirl when they did the presentation there. I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful that I'll like it a lot, but we'll see. Anyway, you're hearing the reviews. Are anything in there surprising you at all? What positives are you taking away from it? What negatives are you taking away from it? And ultimately, what are you expecting out of Supergirl now?
Well, we know that they had 3 different composers on this movie. You know, they kept replacing, and that was a big red flag to me. And I'm with you. I think Craig Gillespie is a good director, but I think maybe he was paired with the wrong material. One of the things, it's really interesting to me, everybody brings up Mad Max. Mad Max is an Australian invention. And the idea that they've made Supergirl that it's become more of a warrior of the wasteland or a Western is odd to me. Because the thing is, and this is just something I felt watching the trailers and things, I'm like, you have an opportunity to build out a fantastical cosmic universe that gives us, I mean, I'm a child of 70s van paintings, of seeing giant vistas and super science and Jack Kirby and, you know, cities that you want to visit and alien worlds that are really cool. But it's like everything they show you, it's Supergirl walks into a bar and it's like she's in space. Like, okay, if you're gonna but why does that planet have to look like someplace I find familiar? You know, show me something that I haven't seen before. And I feel like maybe the approach was not what audiences. I mean, I'm just saying that the attitude for this is I wanted to see the DC comics that I grew up with, which were really colorful and vibrant, and you had that super science. And when you were in space, the Legion of Superheroes or Adam Strange or the New Gods or something, show me that. And I think that they kind of missed an opportunity to do that with this movie, but I haven't seen it. It's hard for me to say. And that was the thing that was apparent to me when I was watching the movie. I thought, you know, we saw those Krypton flashback scenes that were in the movie. I didn't think so much of the film would be taking place in the space wasteland. But I think, and that's part of it. The tonal superhero movies have to have the right tone. And what James Gunn has set up with his own Superman movie is a tone that this movie doesn't look like it followed. And that's kind of what I was worried about. And it seems to be that's the case.
I mean, I agree. Like, I 100% I agree that it like right from the beginning, the tone of Supergirl felt very different from Superman. But then again, you and I both agree that the tone of Clayface feels different from the tone of Superman. But these might be two ones that should maybe be a little bit more similar to each other.
Well, I just want the space. I want the cosmic nature of the DC universe. I mean, we're going to see Green Lanterns too. I want I want it to be cool. I want space to be awesome. It was awesome in Guardians of the Galaxy. There's the head of a Celestial. There's Xandar. You know, there's all this cool the Nova Corps, and you know, there's super science out there in the galaxy, not just Western bars.
Anyway, Brian, you're seeing the reviews now. Where has prior to today, where's your expectations for Supergirl been? And is there anything coming out of these reviews that are really standing out to you?
I would say from the trailers, I've been optimistic. I think the reviews have left me a little feeling like, oh, that feeling where you're like, it's an okay movie. And I'm not, look, I go see every single one of these movies. I eventually get my butt out there, but you know, just had a kid. Am I rushing to go there tonight like you are out? Maybe I'll give it another week, where before it would be like, I've got to see it. I don't feel I've got to see this based on the trailers. And I think her introduction in Superman was fun. I almost feel like some of the maybe the quirkiness of her from the Superman movie has been left to be a little more like, oh, we're actually like edgy and rough and tough. And so even the way she's presented in the trailer is a little different. She is cocky, she is brash, but she had a little like kind of like quirkiness to her that was a little brighter. We haven't seen it. We don't know exactly how they're going to portray the cosmos, but like Rob says, people have criticized me when I say, hey, I read comics growing up in like the 80s and the 90s, and these movies, in order for them to feel more unique and more different, need to lean into the source material a whole lot more than they have. And it doesn't mean that they're copying it, but that's where quite honestly, you're getting more of these like original ideas of things that we just haven't seen, that were too outlandish to ever be seen in movies before. So I'm going to see it. How about this? I don't want to say cautiously optimistic, but I kind of feel that way.
That's where I'm at now. Like I was again, most important part of any movie is going to be the director. They got a great director on board. I was feeling very optimistic about Supergirl until we got to CinemaCon. Once we got to CinemaCon and we saw the presentation, which I wasn't really thrilled with, I converted exactly to that, Brian. I went to cautiously optimistic, and I've remained cautiously optimistic throughout it. And again, there's a number of movies that come out that a lot of people like that I end up not liking, and that a lot of people don't like that I do end up liking. I hope this is going to be one that I love, but I'll find out a little later tonight. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The reviews for Supergirl aren't bad. They're not good. They're right there in the middle. Nobody seems to love it or hate it. It's sitting at, like I said, last I checked, 58%. Could go down as low as 55, could go as high as 62, 63, but it's going to finish right there in the middle, where some people like it and some people don't. Is that what you were expecting? Were you hoping, think it was going to be worse? Do you think it was going to be better? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And all right, guys, we still have a couple of other things to do here. Most importantly, of course, is we're going to go over and start taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to bid good afternoon to writer, director, producer, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Rob, thanks for being here today.
And I'm still going to be excited to go see Supergirl in IMAX tomorrow, John.
Yeah, and I'm going to go see it tonight. Also, our very special guest, first time on the show, Brian, I really hope you'll come back and do this again.
Oh,
Brian
man.
Tong, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, Brian, where can people find you online if they want to go find your stuff?
If they want to check out on YouTube, where most of my stuff is, just youtube.com/Brian Tong, my name. All things tech, geek culture, a little crossover, but a lot of the tech stuff and goodies. And ask John if you want to find out more. But thanks so much for having me. Hey, you text, I'll be here, buddy. I'll be here.
All right, well, we definitely got to have you on again. And of course, our technical producer, Jonathan Voico. We will talk to you later, my friend.
Yep.
All right, guys, we are now going to move over and start taking your live questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment here, pay some of the bills around, if you will, and thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show, our friends at Hims. Guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, Hims. You know, one of the hardest things about trying to lose weight is just figuring out what actually works. Because we've seen them all. There are a million trends, diets, and gimmicks out there. And honestly, it can get overwhelming. And that's why weight loss by Hims really stands out. Hims now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill at its lowest price ever and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite and eat less, so success is within reach. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever and only GLP-1 available in a pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. And the process is extremely convenient. Everything happens online. You connect with a licensed provider who determines if treatment is right for you, and if prescribed, your medication gets delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/Campea to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/Campea. hims.com/Campea. Based on advertised cash price for 30-day supply of medication only. Membership required, fee not included, and billed separately. Weight loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit hims.com. And thank you to our friends at Hims for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your live questions here, shall we? You know what? I'm going to take off my headphones now that I don't need them. Let's get over to your live questions, shall we? We got a whole bunch of them in there. We did turn off the live, super chats a while ago. We've already got a ton of them in there. So let's get over to it, shall we? We're going to start off here with Joseph Claps, who writes, one of two. By the way, sends in like a $50 super chat. Thank you, Joseph, for supporting us on that level, man. That's incredible. Thank you, dude. Anyway, Joseph writes, one of two. Hey, everyone. How do you all think the MCU should structure itself post-Secret Wars? Besides the big guns, X-Men, mutants, Fantastic Four, Spidey, Avengers teams, they're still going to want to do another Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Thor, and possibly Greek gods. Then he sends in another $50. Dude, that's $100 in super chats. Thank you so much for supporting us that way, Joseph. Appreciate it, man. Anyway, Shang-Chi, possibly Midnight Suns, other cosmic characters, Annihilators, Nova, and Humans. Should they still have it all be under the Mutant Saga, or should every corner of the MCU have their own mini saga? Thank you guys for all you do. Well, I mean, the first thing we got to say, and again, thank you for supporting us that way, man. The first thing I think that needs to be said is the obvious thing. It is very difficult to say, or even guess, or predict, or project how Marvel should structure themselves after Secret Wars when we haven't seen Secret Wars. Like, we could give an idea or a thought about how they should do how they should do things after Secret Wars, but that all depends on what they do in Secret Wars and where they lead things off. Because I could say they should do this with Marvel after Secret Wars, but the ending of Secret Wars may totally trash any thought or theory or opinion I had about it. I do think a couple of things are going to happen. There definitely going to be a bigger emphasis on X-Men. They're going to do that for a bit. But listen, we're still going to get, you can't have Marvel, an era of Marvel, without Captain America, without Iron Man. They may not do Captain America and Iron Man within the first couple of years, don't get me wrong, but you're still going to have that somehow, some way that fits in it. They might actually make an overall global story revolving around mutants and mutation that still involves the other popular superheroes, right? It could be all about the world learning to adapt and figure out what it means to be a world with mutants in it. So that could include X-Men, and that can also include Avengers and Fantastic Four and all that kind of stuff. But the main through story could be about how the world is dealing with mutation. Then again, I might be totally wrong about that. Like, depending on how they end Secret Wars. And I may know a lot about Doomsday, but I know nothing other than what's in the comics about what's going to happen in Secret Wars. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do think, even though Kevin Feige's been referring to the next kind of era as the mutant saga, I don't think that means exclusively X-Men. I do think it's going to involve a wider MCU, and what that's going to look like, I don't think we're going to have a real clear picture of that until after we see Secret Wars. Anyway, great question, Joseph. Thank you again, and thank you for supporting us on that level, man. Again, that's incredibly good of you, man. Appreciate it. All right. Isaac Sanchez writes, speaking of DC, the first trailer for season 2 of Batman Caped Crusader is out. Have you seen the first season? Nah, not interested. I'm not saying anybody else shouldn't be interested. I'm not saying it's not good. I can't possibly say it's not good. I haven't seen it. I'm just going to say I'm not interested in it. So I have not seen the first season of it. I don't plan on watching it myself. It's just not something that appealed to me. But I know a couple of people who have watched it and seem to enjoy it. So I hope if you watch it that you're really liking it. All right, next up. Sam Philippe. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Sam, but Sam writes 1 or 2. Hey, John, I'm a big fan of yours. Thank you so much. Been watching you since 2017 around the time that Justice League came out. I'm excited for Supergirl, but am nervous for how it will do. Is DC doomed if it fails? No. We still got Clayface, Man of Tomorrow, Lanterns, Batman Part 2. Yeah, no. Listen, everybody always overreacts both positively and negatively when it comes to the next. Everybody thinks very short-term and very short-sighted. If Supergirl made $1 billion, which it won't, but if Supergirl made $1 billion, that doesn't suddenly mean everything is great for DC now. No. Like Superman got them off to a good start. That was a good start. But it wasn't the game. Game wasn't over. It's a good start. If Supergirl doesn't do well, and you know, I've been saying for months now on this channel, it's a secondary B-list derivative character. You can't expect it to do as well as Superman. I mean, was it possible? Sure, yes. But my expectations haven't been there if you've been watching me for the last number of months. You have to be realistic. The important thing is that it's good. It doesn't sound like it's as good as we were hoping it would be. Regardless of whatever I think of it when I see it tonight. But just like if Supergirl was some $1 billion hit, that doesn't mean DC's all set now. It just means that good start got continued, but there's still work to do. The opposite of that is also true. If Supergirl doesn't do well, that's just one thing. That's a bump in the road. I mean, Superman was a tremendous success for them. Great. But if Supergirl isn't, okay, that's a bump in the road. They're going to have to recover from that. But it by no means does one movie dictate the future success or the future failure of an entire franchise. Now, I will say this. Let's say Lanterns comes out and everybody hates it. And then Clayface comes out and everybody hates it. Let's say all that happens. Well, then that becomes a larger conversation with a wider sample size that I think raises some red flags. But even if Supergirl doesn't end up doing well, we're not there yet. It's one film. Any more than the horribleness of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania didn't kill the MCU, nor will this. Now, if Superman had been terrible, and critics hated it, and audiences hated it, and it did really badly at the box office and all that kind of stuff, and then Supergirl also disappointed, we'd be in a different position. But no. Is it concerning? Yes. Is it game on or game over based on whether it's $1 billion film or a complete flop? No. There's still too much other stuff to come. So everybody needs to start thinking bigger picture instead of smaller picture. That's what I would say to that, Sam. Great question. Thanks for sending it in, dude. All right. Johnny Got Lost, right? Still not convinced Gunn will leave. We'll see. Yeah, and listen, again, I don't know for a fact he's going to leave. I just look at all the tea leaves. Number one, he can go anywhere he wants. Number two, Paramount is going to be a mess with an $80 billion debt, and they're going to be cutting and slashing things all over the place. And number three, James Gunn's contract expires in 2027. Number four, he does not align philosophically with David Ellison. Like, all those to me tells me he's going to leave. But again, I don't know that for a fact. That's just me as an average film fan, just like you, just looking at the circumstances and coming to my own conclusions. And I expect that I'm going to say by November of next year, if the Paramount deal all goes through, which I expect it will, I think by November of next year, James Gunn announces he's leaving. Again, I don't know that as a fact. That's just me guessing, but that's what I think is going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got Milkshake Man writes, John, remember I said Elektra was coming back? I mean, okay. No, I don't remember you saying that, but it's funny. 90% of everything people write in saying what they think is going to happen never happens. And they never then write back into a super chat to say, hey, remember I said this was going to happen? Well, turns out I was wrong. It didn't. But the 1 out of every 10 times that they're right, they will write in to say, remember I said this? Yes, but now write in every time you were wrong. I spend a lot of time on my show talking about the things that I got wrong. So make sure you write into a super chat next time when you get things wrong too. But yeah, I'm happy that she's coming back. I admittedly didn't think she would. I didn't think she was going to come back. And I'm happy that she is. I hope it works out well. All right. Next up, we've got Cody Hunt, who writes, I feel like Secret Wars is going to get pushed into 2028. We've heard nothing about production. They'd have to be shooting now to make that December 2027. Oh, no, they don't. What world do you live in? You do not need to have cameras rolling now to have that movie ready by December of 2027. Not a chance. No. The Secret Wars is also a movie that takes like a lot of the work of a movie. Let me put it this way with an analogy. If you ever had house construction going on around your place, for months, you would walk by the construction site and it looks like they just have a hole in the ground, right? For months. Then all of a sudden, one day you walk by it and the entire frame of the house is up. And like 3 or 4 days later, it looks like a completed house. Months of it looking like it's just a hole in the ground. A matter of days before it almost looks like it's a completed house. A lot of work, especially in visual effects heavy movies like Secret Wars is going to be, they do a lot of pre-production. They do a lot of work goes into pre-production. And by the way, during pre-production on big visual effects heavy things like Secret Wars, a lot of the visual effects work is being done right now. Right now. I can't remember which movie it was, but about 2 years ago, some of you guys might remember it. About 2 years ago, they literally announced a movie, started shooting the movie, and like 4 months later, that movie was in theaters. It was crazy. Now, it was not a movie that's going to have the complexity of a Secret Wars. See if any of you guys remember which movie that was. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But Secret Wars has been in pre-production forever. There's a lot of the work on the movie is going to be done before the cameras even start rolling. And by the way, they have done some preliminary shooting on the movie already. But even if they hadn't, it is simply not true to think that if they haven't started now, it won't be ready by December of 2027. It absolutely will be. 100% it will be. Nothing to worry about at this point. Now, if we get to February and they say they haven't even started shooting Secret Wars yet, okay, then at that point we can start having some discussions about they might have to move this movie back. But right now, no, that's not an issue. Not an issue right now at all. All right, thanks for that, Cody. Next up, we've got Raymond Verada, who writes, John, I should have asked this a while back, but I noticed you changed your intro music. Did the license run out or did you get tired of the old one? No, what actually happened was, so I bought a license years ago for a piece of music that I use for the John Campea Show for years. And this is now well over a year ago. But what happened was I got a content strike one day, and it pointed to that music. So I appealed it. I sent them my license, filled out all the forms, sent them the license to the music, and they went, okay. And they removed the content strike. The next day, exact same thing happened again. got a content strike. I went through the motions. I filled out the forms. I sent them a copy of the license, all that kind of stuff. They said, fine. And then they pulled the strike. Same thing happened third day in a row. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like I can't, the intro music I love, but it's not that important. So I just ultimately bailed on the intro music. And, because something went wrong behind the scenes on their end, that it was flagging it every single time, even though I was sending them the license every single time. So I had to give up on it and went off to a copyright-free piece of music. And I think I'm going to change the music again. Sometime in the next few months. All right, somebody in the live chat, King Daddy Go to sing, just start singing it. Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start singing the intro music. All right. Thanks for that, Raymond. Next up, Super Saiyan 13 writes, "Hi, John. How has so much of Doomsday leaked out so far?" Not actually that much of Doomsday's actually leaked out so far, to be honest with you. Anyway, how has so much of Doomsday leaked out so far in advance? Not everyone, but some. Marvel are usually so good at keeping things secret. Well, number one, like I just said, really not that much. I honestly thought more would have leaked out by now. So it's honestly not that much has leaked out. But why has that much even leaked out? Here's the thing, man. I do have it on me. We live in a world where all of us walk around with these global audio, video communication devices in our pockets, right? A movie like Doomsday literally has thousands of people involved in making it. Thousands. That equals thousands of potential security risks. Thousands. And all it takes is one person to go, to say to their buddy at a bar, I'm not supposed to say anything, so don't tell anybody this. You didn't hear it from me, but blah, 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 blah. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And so, yeah, number one, not that much is leaked out. But number two, I'm always shocked more hasn't leaked out when you consider the thousands of people involved in making it, the thousands of potential leak areas, and yet not nearly as much does as we'd think. So it's hard, man. I mean, it's hard to have a circle of 10 people to keep a secret in it. Now imagine a circle of 3,500 people you got to try to keep a secret in. It's hard. It's very, very difficult. All right, good question, Super Saiyan. Next up, Rich Reviews, Grown, new Blair Witch film next year, Grown. Here's the thing. I am not against the idea of a new Blair Witch. I think the basic lore and mythology of Blair Witch is really interesting. And I think you can make a really good movie of it. Now, if I'm the studio and I'm doing another Blair Witch film, I'm not doing found footage again. Like I'm actually making, because then you're just trying to feel like you're trying to mimic and recreate the phenomenon of the first film. But I think their lore is such a great idea that I think you just build a narrative film around it and see where it goes. So maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad. But for now, I'm actually not against the idea, Rich, to be honest with you. All right, next up. Rich also writes, apparently Elizabeth Banks has been cast as Miss Fizzle in the live-action Magic School Bus film. While I like Elizabeth Banks, I would prefer her as Carmen Sandiego to Miss Fizzle. You know what? I think she'll be a great Miss Fizzle. And I'm not going to lie to you. Now, Jennifer Garner is my longest term movie crush, right? Longest term movie crush. And I've only had a couple. In my lifetime, I've only had a couple of like hardcore movie crushes. Why am I, girl from Friends, Courtney Cox. So Courtney Cox because of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Courtney Cox was my celebrity crush for a while. Then because of The Mask, Cameron Diaz for a short while was my celebrity crush. But by far, the longest term celebrity crush I've ever had was Jennifer Garner. That being said, if Jennifer Garner was my longest term celebrity crush, there was a few years there where my celebrity crush mistress probably would have been Elizabeth Banks. I first fell in love with Elizabeth Banks in 40-Year-Old Virgin. What's your name? Beth. I love her in 40-Year-Old Virgin. She's part of the reason why 40-Year-Old Virgin is my all-time favorite comedy. Fell in love with her that. Loved her in Slither. Love her in everything. I think she's great. I love Elizabeth Banks. And I think she's going to kill it in this. I don't really care. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't care about Magic School Bus. I'm really not interested all that much. But if Elizabeth Banks in it, I believe she's going to kill it. She's going to absolutely kill it because she's Elizabeth Banks. Anyway. All right, next up. We've got Mattia writes, seeing the reviews for Supergirl, are you worried for Teen Titans and Wonder Woman as Anna wrote both of those films? Well, I mean, I'm not going to get worried or not worried until I see the movie, right? That being said, I was always a little they got a great director on, but even great directors have bad days at the office. But I was always a little apprehensive about the lack of resume that she wrote. Because if you go and look at her history and her writing resume, it's very thin. It's not like she's got a bunch of hot garbage in there, like the guys who wrote Morbius. There's just not much of a resume there. And I don't know that your first feature should be a major tentpole film like a Supergirl. But whatever, they were given a chance. So if I come out of Supergirl tonight underwhelmed, then yeah, I'm going to be a little bit nervous about the future of those projects as well. Listen, just because somebody writes one mediocre script doesn't mean they can't write a better one next time. Again, everybody has bad days at the office. Quentin Tarantino has a bad movie. Steven Spielberg has a bad movie. It happens. But, I will be a little bit concerned, apprehensive. I'll be a little bit apprehensive about those other projects. All right. Next up, Zach writes, hey crew, I just watched Pleasantville. I love Pleasantville for the first time in a while. And I got to say, it's still one of my favorite movies. What a beautiful movie. Pleasantville, both the story, the characters, the visual style, which was pretty unique at the time that they did it, that visual style. It's a wonderful movie. It really is. It's one that I go back and revisit. It's not one I watch every year like Lord of the Rings, but it's one I go back and revisit every 4 or 5 years. I go back and watch that one again. It's a really good little movie. I'm glad you watched it again, man. All right, Rich Reviews writes, is there a movie that was based on a book on which you thought the movie was a vast improvement over the source material? Yes. Yes. Which one was it? Oh, I remember having a conversation with somebody that, oh yeah, this one was better than this movie was better than the book. Oh damn. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Do you guys remember? Cause I remember I talked about it on the show, not recently, but do you guys remember? I mean, I don't think it was vastly better, but I agree that, oh yeah, The Martian. I thought The Martian was better than the book. I went back and did the book after I saw the movie, and I thought the movie was better, but that's fine for me. I never read the book, Jurassic Park, but I've heard from many people that they thought the movie was better than the book. But I'm trying to remember which one it was for me, and I cannot remember now. But there are examples. See, here's the hard thing. The hard thing is this. When you read the book first, then your mind creates the world and the characters that inhabit the book. And I think the main reason most people walk away preferring the book over the movie is simply because they read the book first. And now they judge the movie based on how well it lines up with the images they as a reader created in their own head. That is part of the reason why I have a rule for myself. I don't read a book if it hasn't a movie coming up, because I want to give the movie the first shot. Now, I broke that rule with Project Hail Mary, but that's why I have that rule for myself. Anyway, good question, man. Next up, we've got A. Marcellus, who writes, I know this goes without saying, but Javier Bardem is amazing. He really is. Every scene in Cape Fear just feels unnerving. He is the main reason I'm going to watch that show. Now, I haven't started watching Cape Fear. I wanted to get through Widow's Bay first, and I did. Really enjoyed Widow's Bay. But my next one up is Cape Fear. And Javier Bardem, like whether you're talking No Country for Old Men, or you're talking about Vicky Cristina Barcelona, or you're talking about Dune, or you talk about anything, like Javier Bardem is the man. And here's the thing. I've told this story before. I've met Javier, and I actually, the first time I met Javier was there was an after party for Vicky Cristina Barcelona. By the way, also a great movie if none of you have ever seen it. Vicky Cristina Barcelona, fantastic. Penelope Cruz, Javier Bardem, Scarlett Johansson. It's amazing. It's an amazing film. And not just because it has a threesome in it. It's an amazing movie. Anyway. And have you ever met somebody, male or female, who is just so physically good looking that it takes you aback for a moment? Javier Bardem, I understand he's a handsome dude on screen. I get it. But when you meet Javier Bardem in person, I felt issues of inadequacy meeting that dude. Because that dude is not only such a good looking dude, and I say that as a very boringly straight heterosexual man. That is such a good looking dude and so smooth and charming. I'm like, guys like him and Michael Coulter, the guy who plays Luke Cage, I just want to say to the universe, fuck you, because like when you put so much handsomeness into one or two people like that, it doesn't leave as much for the rest of us. And like, yeah, he's just one of those guys. That's happened with me with a couple of people. It happened to me with Javier Bardem. It definitely happened with me when I met Margot Robbie. I'm like you're in the presence of these people who are just so physically attractive. It's like something's wrong. Like human beings, no one human being, whether it's a Javier Bardem, or Margot Robbie, and Mike Coulter, should have that much attractiveness wrapped up in their package. It just not right. It's not right. That's all I'm saying. It's not right. Anyway, let's see. Next up, Rich Reviews writes, which would you rather see, a CGI remake of An American Tale or Land Before Time? Can I admit something to you? I'm not a huge fan of either. Never was. Don't get me wrong. I don't think either are bad. I don't think An American Tale is bad. I don't think that Land Before Time is bad. Don't get me wrong. I've just never been really... It's just one of the, we all have these movies, right? We all have these movies that all of the people we know seem to really like it, but we look at it and kind of go, I don't get it. You know what it's like? Have any of you guys watched Parks and Rec? I think one of the greatest sitcoms in the history of television. Have any of you guys watched Parks and Rec? Okay. Do you remember Little Sebastian? And how Adam Scott, like the whole town of Pawnee, just loved Little Sebastian. Loved Little Sebastian. And then Adam Scott's character is like, I don't get it. It's a little horse. And everybody looked at him like he just said something really sacrilegious. He goes, what am I missing? What's the big deal with this little horse? Anyway, I kind of feel that way about those movies. So my answer would be neither. My answer would be neither. All right. Next up, RJ writes, "Hey, John, have you caught up with Vox Machina? I have not seen the newest season. I just binged through seasons 3 to the end of 4. Killer show for D&D fans. I have not watched the newest season." I was actually kind of caught off guard because I thought season 3 was the end of it because they started making other things. I didn't even realize, like Ann and I the other day kind of saw that there was a new season and we're like, wait, what? So no, I am not caught up with Vox Machina. I will though, because I really like the show a lot and I will get caught up on it at some point here. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we have Sin Vendetta, who sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Sin Vendetta. Appreciate that, man. Thanks for supporting us on that level, dude. And Sin Vendetta writes, "John, I cannot emphasize this enough. I would highly recommend seeing Obsession in theaters instead of waiting for VOD. This is one of the best horror films I've seen in years and deserves a theatrical experience." I just, no. Listen, I can't wait to watch it. I've heard nothing but great things about it, but it is just too late for me to go see it in theaters. I'm going to wait. It's going to be out on VOD really soon, and I'll watch it as soon as it does. But the time I have to go up to the theater, I have to be watching other things at this point. Because of the way the timing of the movie meetup tour that happened when I was gone for weeks, the timing of it just made it impractical for me. And it's just one of those movies that I missed out on. So I will get caught up on it once it hits VOD, and I know it's going to hit VOD soon, but my time going to the theater, I have to use it to see new movies. That's it. The time I've got to go to the theaters, I have to use that time to see new movies. I just don't have the time to just take an evening out that I could be spending with my wife or watching a new film or getting caught up on a show that is running right now. I just don't have the time for it. And listen, that's just something I accepted about this job years and years and years ago. I'm not going to be able to see every movie in theater with all the stuff that I'm trying to do. I just don't. So I'm going to see Obsession, but I missed the window to see it. Because if I don't see a movie within the first couple of days, I don't review it. So believe me, I've heard nothing but super amazing things about Obsession. You guys know I was the first guy online to be, because I got an early look at the trailer, and I've been gushing about how much I wanted to see it ever since the trailer dropped, but I missed the window. It happened. It happens with many movies for me. I don't see every single film in theater. Things just get in the way sometimes. All right. Next up, we've got Ryan Kelly, who writes, "Why wouldn't Marvel Zombies 2 do the story arc of Ultimate Fantastic Four 21 through the 20? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the one you're talking about off the top of the head, so I can't really address that." Danito writes, "I'm kind of tired of seeing overwhelmingly glowing early reactions and then a lukewarm or even bad RT score. Why do you think this happens so often?" It doesn't actually happen that often. Like, if you're talking about Supergirl, the Supergirl early reactions were not overly over the top super positive. We talked about that when the reactions came out. The majority of them were positive, but the majority of the reviews are positive too right now. But I think we even said when the first reactions came out, it's like, okay, but like not a lot of people saying this is the best thing they've ever seen. So, I mean, the other thing is this. I think there's a lot of critics who don't put out an early reaction. I think a lot of critics just wait for the full review embargo to lift before, and just kind of ignore they ignore the social media embargo and they just wait for the full review to lift because they don't want to give away. I know a lot of critics who don't want to give away what they thought of a film by putting out a social media reaction. And so they hold their full thoughts until the full review embargo lifts. So there's that. Secondly, I think even when people do like a movie and all that's lifted is a social media embargo, people tend to focus more on the positive than on the negative. Like, they'll focus because it's just a quick reaction, right? And so they'll focus and say the positive, and then they'll wait to give the broader scope of things until the full reviews come out. Now, that doesn't mean early reactions aren't worthwhile. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, if we're being realistic, the sense we get from the early reactions usually ends up being pretty close to what the full reviews are as well. But I've said this for a long time. I just think there's a lot of people who, because I know I used to do this too. My first social media reaction I would say exactly what I think, but I would just say the positive things because I had 140 characters or however much you had, and then would worry about it later in my full review. I'd give my full thoughts there. So that's why I think social media reactions skew more positive, but they're very rarely, if ever, night and day. I remember on the show a few months ago, somebody said that, and we went back and looked at the social reactions. Like, no, there were a bunch of negative early reactions too. It's not like it was like all glowing positive. There were that too. So I think for the most part, they usually come out pretty close to each other, but there's definitely in social media embargoes, a little bit more emphasis on the positive because people have limited time to express a thought. That's my theory at any rate. That's my theory. All right. Good question, Danito. Next up. Sahib writes, thoughts on Magic School Bus movie with Elizabeth? Again, I love Elizabeth Banks, but I don't care about Magic School Bus, so I am not interested in it. I'm not going to be following news about it, and I'm probably not going to be seeing it when it comes out, but I do love me Elizabeth Banks. All right, next up. Ken writes, shout out to the guy at Disclosure Day. That better be Professor X or I'm done at the alien wheelchair reveal. Did somebody yell that out in your theater? That better be Professor X? Listen, I got to tell you guys, I'm pretty disappointed with Disclosure Day. Look, Steven Spielberg is still the man. It's not even close. It's not even remotely close. Steven Spielberg is by miles the greatest filmmaker in history. Period. End stop. No discussion. He just is. But even the greatest of all time will have bad days at the office. And I got to tell you, I was really hoping for better from Disclosure Day. I wasn't all that excited about Disclosure Day at first, but I grew to be pretty excited about it. And then I saw the movie, and I do think the first 2 acts are really good. Like, I think the first hour and a half of the film, hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half of the film is really, really good. But then it just kind of spun out of control. Threads that you thought were going somewhere just kind of unraveled. And I don't think Disclosure Day is a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. But compared to what I was hoping for, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty disappointed in it. I was pretty disappointed with it. All right, next up. Switch 1000 writes, not a bad thing if Gunn leaves, to be honest. Well, I mean, it's bad for DC. It's bad for DC. Again, listen, I said in the years leading up to Superman coming out that I said it's almost an impossible task. Everybody has such short memories. They all forget just how absolutely decimated the reputation of DC was after the nuclear fallout of the DCEU. To the point that a bunch of the DCU films barely made over $200 million at the box office. One or two of them didn't even make $200 million at the box office. Even Aquaman, which was $1 billion film in its first one, like dropped to laughable levels. Black Adam couldn't make $400 million with who was at the time the biggest movie star in the world with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a movie they hyped for almost 10 years. And yet somehow, some way, James Gunn managed, with the audience having completely abandoned the DC brand. Everybody forgets that. The audience had 100% abandoned the DC brand. And in one movie, James Gunn was able to create big, wonderful critic reviews, a huge audience reception with a 90+% audience rating, and made more money in that first movie out of the gate with the hugest hole that they were dug in because of the DCEU, made more money than the previous 7 DCEU films did. That was a Herculean accomplishment. Massive. But as somebody who has all the belief in the world in James Gunn, I have said for the longest time, and a lot of you guys have argued with me, and maybe you still disagree. That's fine. We're all meant to have different opinions. It's okay. But you guys know who watch my show. My one big burr and, wrench in the gears has been, I think James Gunn needs to focus on being the head of DC and stop being out of the office for years at a time directing the films himself. Pick one, James. I think you're going to be a great CEO of DC, but only if you're actually being the CEO of Disney, you and Peter Safran. Or be the main director of DC. You do great as the director of DC. You're one of my favorites. But you cannot do both well. In the words of the great Ron Swanson, going back to Parks and Rec, don't half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing. And I think that maybe if I don't end up liking Supergirl, and I don't know, maybe I'll love Supergirl. I'm seeing it later tonight. That a part of the reason for that is that he is not focused enough on the DCU as a whole enough as the CEO of DC, and he's too focused on just directing his own individual projects. I've said that for a long time, and a lot of you guys have given me a lot of pushback on that, and maybe you still will. But I really believe that. And I think that's something that he's got to, address. I really, really do. Either direct a whole bunch of them or be the CEO. Don't think for a second you can do both. There's one of the main reasons the MCU, despite, it had some struggles, yes, but the MCU is the most successful film franchise of all time, is because Kevin Feige focused on being the boss. Kevin Feige didn't go out and direct all the movies himself, or half of them. Kevin Feige focused on being the guy overseeing everything. That's not the only reason Marvel's been so successful, but it's one of the big ones, and I think James Gunn needs to follow that lead. That's just me. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Just my opinion on that. Okay. Next up, let's see. The Fergus Review Channel writes, I have a ranking video of Sam Raimi's movies this September. Good for you. And that'll do it, guys, for all the questions sent in. I'll tell you what, I've got just a couple of minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some questions from you guys in the live chat. If you guys have any questions, look in the live chat right now. Put in all capital letters question. That way I know you're asking me a question. And then type in your question, and I will just ask. I'll just address a couple. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to cherry pick a couple and do those, and then we'll move on from there. Michael Gonzalez says, do you think Michael reaches 1 billion? It's certainly looking more and more likely. I don't think it's 100% yet, but it's getting there. So, I mean, listen, I said for well over a year that I thought it would hit 1 billion. Then I saw the movie, and I don't think the movie's quite as good as I was hoping it would be. So then I started to have my doubts about whether it hit 1 billion, but it just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. So maybe it gets there. I think it looks more like, I think it's only like 40 million away from making it. So it has a good shot at getting there. Let's see here. Jamel writes, if Gunn does leave, do you think they reboot again? No. I don't think they reboot again. I think they try to keep it going. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but again, they got off to a really good start with Superman. You've laid some groundwork. I think if Gunn leaves, I think they try to keep it going. Again, I don't know that for certain, but that you asked me to guess, so I'm guessing. My guess is they're going to keep going. Polly Juan Kenobi writes, who is Batman? I think I know who Batman is. I think I know who the DCU Batman is. I think they've cast him. I had somebody write to me about a particular person that they believe it just got cast. I get a lot of those. I don't pay attention to a lot of them. But then I heard from somebody else who's a little bit more well-positioned that verified that it looks like this is the guy. And he doesn't know the first person I talked to at all. So I sent that pic to a Hollywood producer I know. And like, what do you think? So I think I know who it is. I'm not going to say it right now. But I will say this. It's not a name I would have guessed. And I don't think it's a bad name, but it's not a name I would have guessed. Yeah, not a name I would have guessed. I'm going to keep putting out feelers because I don't want to say who I believe is going to be the next Batman until I'm a little bit more certain, because I don't want to spread misinformation. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's see here. Next up, Gadegzedza writes, question, thoughts on Millie Alcock alienating her men audience? I think if you're a man who's been alienated by Millie Alcock's like thoughts and opinions and things she's been saying, you're a pretty pussy weak ass man. You're pretty pussy weak if you feel alienated, because the stuff that Millie Alcock has said is pretty common sense and pretty innocuous. So I think you have to be a pussy of the supremest level to be alienated by the words of Millie Alcock. And I'm not saying you are saying you're feeling alienated. You're just saying some men are men. But yeah, I think you have to be pussalaya, man. I think you have to be pretty pussalaya to feel alienated by Millie Alcock's comments. Unless she said something this morning that I'm completely unaware of. Like if Millie Alcock came out this morning and said, all men should be castrated and thrown into the fire of Hades. Like if she said that this morning and then I missed that, I might have to reevaluate what I just said. But yeah, I think you're a pretty pathetic excuse for a man if anything Millie Alcock said has disenfranchised you. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show part of your day. A big special thank you, of course, to Brian Tong for being here. I hope we get to have him back sometime soon. Hey, just so you know, tomorrow we have another special guest. Chris from 3C Films is going to be our guest on the show tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to having him on. I hope you guys will come back and join us again. That will do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.